Hi, this is Connie Beach. I'm going to try to reenact a little bit my eulogy that I delivered at Dad's celebration of life on 9/26. It's probably not going to be exactly the same because I'm going to hopefully follow my notes a little bit better than I did when I was in person and started to fumble around. But the gist of it will be the same. And I just want to get this down for history. I'm going to use PowerPoint's video uh, export system, so we'll see how this goes. When writing Dad's obituary with the help of the family, we tried to complete as much of his whole story and how he spent his life and his passions and try to keep it as concise as we could. But today I'm going to tell you my own story, or not today, but actually on 9/26 is what I said. So we're going to fast forward a little bit through the 40s and 50s. So my dad was born on 12/31, 1939. He was born to Bet and Milda Calhoun, and then he had siblings Stan and Lorraine. Went to Blaine School District mostly, and he played in the band, ran track, was an officer, and had a lot of good times based on the things I read in his annuals. But I first met Dad 64 years ago, so I've known him my whole life. I was born 10 months after Mom and Dad got married. You can count on your fingers. August, and I was born in May. Chris came 3 years later. In the wedding picture there, they're with Evelyn and Chuck Beach, Mom's mom and dad. My first home was on top of an upholstery shop. I just liked showing this because conveys my humble beginnings in case I ever get into politics. Dad and Mom played a lot of cards there and took care of their money well. Dad liked to visit the guy that worked downstairs in the upholstery shop. My dad could do anything. This is a picture I have hanging on my wall, the one where he's lifting me up. Apparently it was a trick he liked to do, and I trusted him, even though sometimes he held me down and licked my nose, which was quite gross. As you can see by my adoring eyes, I just thought Dad could do anything. My mom told the story of little me looking out the window at the snowfall and asking, "Did my dad do that for me?" He maybe didn't make the snowfall, but he did like to play in the snow, and he liked building snow people. He would often use food coloring to make them look really cool. When Dad was in the grocery business, he painted their window signs. I never got to see those, but we loved the Christmas windows he painted with Mom's help. These are just some of those examples. My dad made me things. He made lots of things. Before he had a shop, he used the multi-purpose kitchen table as a workbench. And you can see I'm taking it all in. He would build swings for us. And he took a used swing set and he fixed it up for us. And I remember he put a Woody Woodpecker sign on the end. He also made me a little wood kitchen in his shop, which was a separate garage situation. And I remember one time I left the light on, which I was never supposed to do. So I had to go back out in the dark and go turn that light off. But the scariest part was when I walked back in and I stepped on a darn slug. So gross. And it made for a lasting memory. When you moved to Federal Way, probably about 1965, I think, Mom and Dad made our new house a home, which it was a brand new house, a 3-bedroom rambler, and it needed a new yard. So we all got involved in that. We had quite a few pictures in our photo album of that, the work we did there. Dad built a patio in the back with rockeries around the side, and we had rockeries on the back hill. We also had a little pool, and Dad liked throwing us in the pool. That was a lot of fun. One year on my birthday, which falls around Memorial Day, uh, we decided I had a big party with all my friends, And Dad got the idea to make a camp out of it. And he put pea gravel on our patio, and we had a nice campfire and roasted marshmallows. So much fun. The downside, though, unfortunately, was our dog, Baba, got a hold of those marshmallows and gummed them all up and left them on a lot of the girls' sleeping bags, so they got to take home a souvenir. Dad was a salesman, and he wore that 60s suit and sold Campbell's soup to grocery stores. It's not that done that way anymore, but he would call on the stores and he would convince them to buy lots of soup, and then he would build beautiful displays. We had lots of pictures of those displays. Dad also did take your daughter to work day before it was a common practice. And here's a picture of that we came across that when we went to work and Chris and I helped shelve the shelves with the soup cans. I remember that as being pretty fun. Dad taught me about business and he helped me start my popcorn sales business. I called it the psychedelic popcorn business. We had a notebook to keep track of the money and I decorated my bags. I'm pretty sure this is probably when I decided that I was going to go to college and get a BA in business. I really like this picture. My best friend Tammy Capel and I did the selling, and the caption on this in the photo album was "Stupid boys looking at us." When I was 12, Mom and Dad stretched and bought a house on Lake Killarney. Oh, what a time we had living on that lake. Dad and our neighbor, Mr. Hainsworth, built a dock that we shared. There, we had an easement down to the lake, and we shared that dock with them. We had music down there and a telephone because Dad ran wires all the way down the hill for that tech. We didn't have cell phones back then, but Dad did love the phone. I remember one of the things is he would constantly be testing the phone lines because we did have two since he was a salesman and we were in a weird area. He had to have one for Seattle calls and one for Tacoma calls. So this is the Calhouns on Lake Killarney. I loved that view. The teen years were tough for a lot of kids and parents, and Dad and I had our ups and downs. One morning I was in the kitchen doing something, and Dad was reading the paper, and then he told me that he saw me, and I didn't look so good to be kissing a boy at the skating rink. I stood there dumbfounded, and I said, "How did he know that?" And he said, "Dads know everything." As it turns out, he had thought he would come join me for some skating because he used to roller skate often at the Birch Bay rink. But when he came into the rink, he spied me in the dark corner kissing my boyfriend. Scott or Steve or Tim or Mark, whoever. The one skating rink here is the Shores Acre roller skating rink in Birch Bay. And then this Old World Square fed away is where our skating rink was. It was a lot of fun there. I used to go and walk to A&W afterwards, get a root beer and hang out with my friends. Then there was the time that I came home late after working at the A&W and I was driving the spare car, which was the red pickup truck with the camper on it. It was our habit to close the restaurant and then go hang out at Denny's to wind down. I don't know if it's still true, but back then the Denny's seemed like it was always open. Anyway, Dad came to look for me and found me just leaving the A&W in the truck and camper and followed me home. Geez, was I surprised when I got out and he was there in the driveway questioning my driving skills. But my dad could do almost anything. He fixed things, built things, and helped to solve problems. One night I was using poor driving skills and put Mom's candy green 1969 Camaro in the ditch. I thought I would be in so much trouble. But when I got home, he said, "Is everyone all right?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Okay, we'll check on it in the morning." I never got in trouble other than I was teased about it forever. I think it was remembering his escapades from his high school driving days that he forgave me. I didn't know about these escapades much back then, but I heard about them later. I realized my punishment was that we had to sell the totaled 1969 Camaro that I loved so much. Still to this day, I would love to have my own 69 Camaro. I've had to be satisfied with toy ones. Another time I was following my boyfriend in his big flatbed truck a little too closely, turned my head and crunched the front of my beloved 78 Celica. No worries, Dad fixed it. Meanwhile, he continued to sell. He sold safety products for Western Optical and then sold gas and oil for Mobil and then sold houses. He continued to work and also played. One of our favorite places to play was at the cabin. Since I was a baby, we've had the cabin to escape to. We enjoyed many times there, but for Dad, it was also a place to work. Here's our family at our cabin in Birch Bay. Our house was filled with music. Dad would sing around the house. We had a piano, and then he had an organ, and then he played the trumpet, the trombone, and Chris and I both had piano lessons. She continued with it, and she sang in the choir, and I played in the band. This requirement was also passed on to my children, and it makes me happy that they both have a lot of music in their lives. When we get to be together on holidays, we like to sing together. Especially if we're together on a birthday, you're going to hear something like this.
That's what happens. Those kids always get more attention.
10.
What?
Are you 10?
2. Yes, turn all the lights on. Turn all the lights on.
Turn all the lights off.
Hold on, I'll get the sun.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jillian. Happy birthday to you. All at once now. Get him! Get him! And many more on Channel 4. And Big Fat Lady on Channel Lady.
And Scooby-Doo on Channel 2.
I think you all get that Dad was good with tools. As soon as he could, he would have a shop. And so every house we lived in had a shop space. Here he is working away. He actually had a truck too, full of tools. Here's he is with his brother Stan, making some kind of project. He also was great in the kitchen, and in both places, along with music, it gave him a lot of pleasure. One of the things that I would chalk up to his farm life was that he always expected Chris and I to come up and have breakfast. Mom was off early going to drive the school bus, and Dad was a salesman, so his time frame was a little more flexible. So he would always make us breakfast, and sometimes I found that annoying because I had hair to dry and style and makeup to apply, and I really didn't have time to sit down to breakfast. I guess back then I didn't realize how important it was for learners to have a full belly before school. It wasn't until much later that I really understood how important that was. He also made wonderful dinners. Mom once told me that was because he loved to cook and she couldn't get him to do any other household chores, so she let him have that job. Meanwhile, Dad told some story about he had to teach her to cook. Whatever. She was one of the valedictorians at Stadium High School, so she had other huge talents.
What's happening in the kitchen, gang?
Everything is happening. Is it happening, please?
One meal that he would prepare was our family tradition of the Norwegian delicacy of lutefisk.
Hit it.
Lutefisk. Every country has its cultural specialties. Nostalgic memories tug at your heartstrings if you're separated by distance. These favorites are set below you, before you. Norway's lutefisk is such a specialty to many. Lutefisk, dried cod treated with lime, must be surely the strangest culinary effort credited to the Norwegians. But what a treat when properly prepared.
Treat?
Everyone, of
Did they
course.
say a treat?
Properly prepared. Yes, it's a treat. God,
Hit it.
Dad and Stan carried on the tradition of lutefisk. Oh, it was something that we had done every year that I could recall. Grandma Calhoun and Grandpa Calhoun would make us a lutefisk dinner for Christmas Eve, and Dad and Stan carried on that tradition. It was kind of a battle with them. They had fun with it. Unfortunately, when Mom passed and Stan passed, it wasn't as fun for Dad. We usually had a big baking day or quite often had a big baking day. And here's one of my favorite memories was Stan and his wife Gail and mom and dad and Chris and I baking up a storm. We had to have that lefse and flatbread to go with our lutefisk dinner. I'm lucky that my daughter-in-law Kelly has that tradition in her family too. No lutefisk, but they also had the uh, have the flatbread and the lefse, so that will continue. My dad was the first, as far as I knew, to get the newest gadget. He had a hand calculator before anyone else because mom gave it to him for his birthday. It came in very handy for his sales work. We had a Commodore 64 home computer that I was able to write reports on and letters of application. He had a video camera, early on, and I remember one time when Dad and I chased my sister along the cross country trail so he could videotape her. Had a big old bag, and I would carry part, and he would carry the camera. This middle picture is a picture of his grandfather Elias, my great grandfather, and his brother Charles came to visit, and they couldn't hear each other because they're quite old. But Dad hooked up some microphones and speakers, and then that way they could have a conversation and hear each other. We, in the educational field, call this assistive technology. When I went to Wazoo, Washington State University over there in Pullman, I think mom and dad wanted me to go somewhere a little closer, but I wanted to go where my boyfriend was attending. Dad still came all the way out to Dad's weekend twice, and that was a lot of fun. I eventually married and got a husband and two children at the same time, making my parents instant grandparents. Jimmy and Adam. Jimmy is a singer. Adam was good at driving. I remember when he was 5, I actually let him drive my Celica from the passenger seat. He could shift the gears, not drive it, but shift the gears. Dad loved to teach and found that kids weren't very interesting until he could teach them something. He held them and shared in feeding them, but it wasn't until they could learn something that he was really had fun with them. Dad made Joey a toolbox. One time he went and he pretended to be Santa Claus at Samantha's preschool Christmas program. I think she figured it out. And then Jackie and Jilly, he maybe was teaching Jackie here how to love her sister, but it looks like she already knew how. And here there's having a little high five. Luckily for me, my dad had a truck full of tools, and he would come to help me with my DIY on repair projects. This is when I wanted a window. He came on down and he put my window in for me in my family room. One time the roof blew off my side yard. Dad came down and helped fix that up. Thanks, Dad. In 2011, Mom and Dad wanted me to move from Renton to Whatcom County, where they were living now. And I said, "Oh, I'd consider it if they found me a place where I could see the water." You see, I grew up kind of spoiled living on the lake. I knew that staring at the water was very calming for me. So they found this cute little house. It needed lots of work, but it also had a vacant lot next to it that was full of blueberries or blackberries. And so Dad got a tractor and he took all those blackberries down so that I would have a view. One of the things that we did together was he built some bird houses for the Wings Over Water birding festival that happens in March here. He built like 3/4 of it, and then we bring it to the festival, and then kids could finish off the birdhouses. It ended up he did it for probably 4 or 5 years, and it ended up being a family thing towards the end. So here's Dad, me, Mom, and Chris. And we helped those kids put those birdhouses together. They're probably all over Whatcom County. We also enjoyed going crabbing, and they would go crabbing every year. I got pretty spoiled again with lots of free crab, free to me, but of course get the licensing in the boat and all that. But the trips out on the water were just so much fun on those beautiful sunny days. Sometimes Dad would sing us a song.
We are fishing, and we got crabs to go.
The tin shed that was on the property lost its roof during a storm, and Dad decided it needed a new shed. He recruited his brother Stan to help. But it was clear these two builders and mechanics were running out of steam.
Oh, now I got cups in the way. That wasn't a good spot for those. Take a sip, though. I want you to hydrate. Have a sip of water. I thought about getting you some Coke, but I didn't go to the store. Who's in charge today?
Nobody.
I felt a little bad that they were tackling this big job, and so I tried not to bother Dad to fix things anymore, and I recruited a handyman, TJ, to help me with the fix-it stuff.
Oh, now I got cups in the way. That wasn't a good spot for those. Take a sip, though. I want you to hydrate. Have a sip of water. I thought about getting you some Coke, but I didn't go to the store. Who's in charge today?
Nobody.
Mom and Dad made a big compound out of the cabin and the manufactured home next door that they bought when they retired. They did enjoy a lot of good times there with their neighbors, but they wanted to find something a little nicer with a little easier upkeep. In 2016, they moved to Birch Bay Village. We looked forward to them enjoying years there together, but sadly it wouldn't be. Mom passed in 2017 and left Dad on his own. Dad filled his days with visiting with neighbors, trips to Costco, watching Gunsmoke, seeing family, and regularly attending his coffee group at the clubhouse on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He talked of it often and enjoyed the discussions. This was one thing I wanted to make sure he was able to do again when he came home from the hospital, and he did. I also had an opportunity to enjoy the company of this neat group of people. From my early years, I remembered my dad's morning routine was included reading the newspaper and drinking his coffee. While many people, including me, have resorted to reading the news online, he still enjoyed spreading out the paper. He didn't know how much the paper cost now, though, so it took a little encouragement to get him to subscribe. Luckily for me, I will not be one of those people with regrets that I didn't say what I wanted to say to my dad. Sometimes our love language didn't mesh, but I knew I loved him, he knew I loved him, and I know he loved me. In one of our recent conversations, we were discussing our nest eggs, and I was lamenting that I hadn't built a very big financial nest egg. He looked at me and he said, "Your family is your nest egg, and it is wonderful and strong." And Dad did build a wonderful legacy, our family. Here's a picture of all of us on Christmas this last Christmas. Nice big gang. Well, this is my story. These are my memories, some of them. I do have a tendency to be long-winded. I may have also gotten that from my dad. If you were here, you knew Dad in some way or another and probably have a different story to tell. I hope you might tell us at least one. Thank you for being here today. And luckily, we did have some people come up and share their stories, and that was really nice and wonderful. If you have a story to share with me, please send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening.